Well, everybody, Mike Griffith here, and welcome to Friday Night Mike. Friday Night Mike under the lights. I'm going to do my last moment adjustment here. I hope everybody has had a good week and is having a great Friday night. I'm doing this outside. It's a little scary. I don't know what's out there. I've never really looked in my backyard at night. I'm going to do let me flip this around. You can see what I mean, right? See that? That's out there. That's my yard. There's just darkness. So if I hear some scary noises or something, hear bushes rattling, I'm thinking it might just be squirrels. Are squirrels nocturnal? I know they're out there during the daytime, but I might hear some rustling out there. So, Dog Nation, we're going to try and bring you some more video production at night. Different times of the day. We want to have at least 2 videos a day. I hope you were around to catch our draft yesterday. That was just a blast. We picked all these Georgia football players. I noticed some of the players. I noticed Richard LeCount was on our Dog Nation Facebook page. He appreciated being the first overall pick in the draft. I understand why Jeff Sentell went there with picking Richard LeCount as the first pick of the draft. Richard is to me, he's going to assume, I think he'll be the face of the program on defense. He's got an electric personality. I think he's a great leader. I think he's a guy who's worked really hard. Kirby has really... Early on, he was really on Richard LeCount. I mean, remember he called him Rat Trap Richie? That was Richard telling us that. And Rat Trap Richie, right? Because he broke assignments. And when a coach is on you like that, that means he really likes you. And at least in Kirby Smart's case, when Kirby calls a guy out in the media and says he wants him to work harder, or like he's done with Malik Herring, or like he's done with Tyreek Stevenson, that's a good sign. It's a good sign if the kid takes it right and understands, hey man, coach sees something in me and he's calling me out publicly to try and motivate me. Because that's kind of what Kirby does. He doesn't really talk bad about any of his players. If anything, he tries to motivate them. I think he's a great motivator. I think that's why he's so popular with the players. I think that's how he gets so many guys is, Kirby's real. Kirby's still a young guy. He's 44 years old. He turned 44 in December. So, thought that was interesting. I see some people. What's the pleasure? What's up? No. Listen, just kind of wanting to put a wrap on the week. Kirby talked on a beat writer teleconference. I was on that. There was a restricted list of us that cover the team daily. He talked earlier this week. That was Tuesday, and then he went on the Paul Feinbaum show Wednesday, and actually felt like Kirby let a little bit more out on Paul's show when he talked about how things might be when they come back. So understand that Kirby Smart is a guy who knows what he doesn't know. That's one of the reasons I like covering Kirby. When he doesn't have an opinion or he's not sure about something, he'll tell you that. And people asked him, well, when do you think they should start football up again? Or when do you think they need to start? He said, guys, I don't know that. We've got doctors, we've got scientists. Those are the guys that would know that. So when Kirby does speak on something, it tells me he feels he's got a good line of information. So when he talked about some of the provisions that might be in place, I did a story today, Kirby Smart gives glimpse into the future. He talked about players having their temperatures taken, and he talked about quarantining players, roommate situations, and some of the provisions that'll be in place when football resumes. The fact that conversation is taking place tells me the wheels are turning. Dabo Swinney did a Zoom press conference earlier today, and I know that Georgia and Clemson have this rivalry thing going, but I've got to tell you, Dabo is a guy that I know well. Dabo is a guy that I covered before he was Dabo, right? Or maybe I should say I knew Dabo before the rest of the world knew Dabo, because Dabo hasn't really changed since I covered him when he was a receivers coach at Alabama in the 1990s. I covered the Crimson Tide as a beat writer in 94, 95, 96, 97. I was in Tuscaloosa. And in those days, you had open practices, and you would walk the halls. I literally walked the halls of the football building, and you would stop in and talk to different assistant coaches. So, Bill Brother Oliver had the office that was closest to Coach Stallings' office. And then it was Woody McCorvey, who's now Dabo's kind of right-hand man. I forget the name of the offensive line coach that was there, Jim something. And then there was Dabo's office. And Dabo was a first-year receivers coach. And back then, he was just happy to be there. You know, you'd walk by his office and, hey, how you doing? You know, oh, hi, Dabo. You know, Dabo didn't really have a lot to say, but anytime you want to talk, you want to come in here and talk to me, man? You know, well, you know, there were other coaches that knew more, and I would talk to Dabo, but every conversation was the same. Man, I'm just happy to be here. I'm so thrilled. And the coolest thing about Dabo Swinney is he's that same guy now. He's just happy to be there. So last spring, let me back up a little bit. So one of the things that I've gotten into over the course of my career is the Football Writers Association of America. And back in, I don't know, 2000, 1999, I don't know, I wrote some story about an LSU quarterback that won an award, and I joined the organization, and I said, hey, you need a freshman All-American team. That's what you need. There's more, I'll tell that story another day. But they said, okay. So I started this freshman All-American team, and I've been like the chairman of that for whatever, how many years. I think Ben Roethlisberger was my freshman All-American quarterback, just to tell you how long ago that was. And this freshman All-American team still exists. Anyway, moving forward, who says I'm boring? Tony, I'm sorry. I'm telling a story. So moving forward, last year we had our first ever freshman of the year, and Trevor Lawrence won it. So I went to Clemson's spring game last year. And let me tell you, man, Dabo rolled out the red carpet. It was like those 20 years, 25 years since I covered him at Alabama. They didn't exist. Hey, Mike, how you doing, man? Come on the field. Come in the locker room after the game. I wrote some stories on that. And then he got his ice cream. He got like this Nutty Buddy ice cream. He gets this at the end of every. I said, this is the same doggone guy. This is the same guy that I covered at Alabama in 94 to 97. Only now he's making $9 million a year. Anyway, I thought that Dabo's presentation the other day, it was very positive. And I don't know if you caught the acronym Tigers, right? This is gonna end real soon, right? I thought that positivity was good. You know, kind of started out, Kirk Herbstreit gave his opinion, and I don't hold that against Herbstreit, by the way. He's asked an opinion, he's going to give it. I respect Kirk Herbstreit. I want you to know when I'm in season, and every now and then I'll get a call from ESPN, and they'll say, hey, do you want Herbstreit this week? You know, what time would be good? You know, and boom, every time I get an opportunity to talk to Kirk Herbstreit, I'm going to do it because I think he is a phenomenal analyst. Again, I know there's some bad blood, some between Georgia and Ohio State and Kirk from a few years back, but he has been sensational to talk to. I thought he was one who really put the Fromm Fields thing into perspective, probably better than anyone else, earlier than anywhere else. And I think he continues to do great analysis. In my history of talking with Kirk, a lot of it was covering Tennessee. A lot of Tennessee-Florida games he would forecast. Even up when I was covering Michigan State, he had some comments about them when the Spartans were a top 10 team. 3 of the 4 years I covered them. The guy's usually right, okay? I think that's what upset so many people when Kirk said he'd be shocked. I think we were all upset because Kirk is usually right. And he may be right on this one, or he may be wrong. But Brian Kelly came out, the Notre Dame coach came out and said, look, Kirk Herbstreit's not a scientist, so he doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay, that's Brian's take. And Dabo's take is we're going to play. Kirby sounds guardedly optimistic to me. The fact that Kirby was talking about taking players' temperatures, potentially quarantining guys, tells me that they're already starting to wrap their brain around what could it be like when we return. Because now that the coronavirus has been introduced to the world, we can't unsee it, right? We can't ever forget it. We know there's this deadly virus out there, more deadly, that spreads faster than anything we've encountered in mankind. And we know that's real. The boogeyman is real, okay? It's called the coronavirus right now. We don't have a vaccine. We don't have all the answers. The world's greatest scientists are pursuing the answers for this. But I don't know if we're ever going to feel completely comfortable again when the guy in the community breakfast area at your hotel sneezes or blows his nose. Which, by the way, the nose blowing has always been a pet peeve of mine. You people that blow your nose in the common areas at breakfast, please stop it. That is rude with a capital R. I get so upset. I'll be sitting there, and listen, I'm one of these guys, I'm a Marriott guy, right? So when I go on my business travels, I'm going to stay at a Fairfield or a Spring Hill or a Courtyard, or if I get lucky and find a decent Marriott that's not going to rip me off, I'm going to stay there. I'm going to go down to the breakfast area. I'm going to get some of that oatmeal. I'm going to put some almonds in there. I'm going to put some yogurt in there. And I'm going to bring my laptop computer. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to get a hot green tea, some Zen green tea. Sometimes I bring my own. And I'm going to have a hot green tea. And I'm going to plant myself there probably for 2 or 3 hours if I don't have anywhere to be. And I'm going to write and eat oatmeal and yogurt, Greek non-fat yogurt, and some green tea. And I'm going to enjoy it until the dude blows his nose. And when you blow your nose, and you know who you are, I'm going to go, I will say this. I'll be the guy that'll go, seriously? And the person will look up at me. They won't say anything. They just look up at me. And I'll just... like, you blew your nose. Don't do that at breakfast, man. I'm eating. I do not want to hear your mucus coming out of your face. That's disgusting. And now it's unhealthy. So I think there should be signs up, no nose blowing at breakfast. Takes me off. So there's that. There's a nose blowing aspect. But my point is, we're starting to look at, okay, how could it be when football returns? Those are tough conversations. We're not exactly sure how we're going to do it. We're not exactly sure when we're going to do it. We're talking about modified seasons. We're talking about delayed season. We're talking about shortened seasons. But you know what? We're talking about a season. We're talking about a season. Yeah, people say, oh, you went on a tangent. I did go on. It's Friday night. It's Friday Night Lights. I'm sitting outside on a Friday night talking football with Dog Nation. We're going to go on tangents. You know what? I'm going to go to the page right now. I'm going to see who's got some football questions. We had a draft. We went, I don't know, almost 2 hours the other day picking our teams. I had the best team. I don't know why everybody can't see that. I didn't have the most popular players, but if we actually played a football game with the teams that we picked, my team would win. I'm just telling you. Thank you for backing me up on the nose blowing. Everyone, take this as a public service announcement. If you blow your nose in public, especially in breakfast areas, stop it. Because one day you will encounter your own Mike Griffith who will confront you and say, really? That will, and I'm not trying to embarrass people when I say it. I just want to make them aware. You know, they eat their breakfast, they finish up, they pull out their hanky. And I'm just going, I'm eating oatmeal, man. Can you give me a minute? All right, what questions do we got here? What do we got? How's Blaylock doing? Jay Bryan wants to know. Jay, Blaylock is notorious fast healer. Jeff Santel was saying yesterday he saw a video with Dominic dancing. Look, it happened in December. It happened in the first quarter of the SEC championship game. I don't think it's realistic to have an expectation for Dominic Blaylock this season, okay? Now, different people heal at different rates. But even when you saw Zamir White back this year, as hard as Zamir White worked, he still wasn't quite himself. I didn't think. I thought Zamir, I didn't think I really saw shades of what he could or should be until that Sugar Bowl game when I started to see a little wiggle out of him. So I wouldn't count on Dominic Blaylock being vintage Dominic Blaylock this year. Not saying he won't get back and contribute, but it takes time. I remember Robert Meacham was a guy I covered at Tennessee that had a knee, and it was 2 years before he was Robert Meacham again. He ended up being a first-round pick, but it does take time. Not just the physical healing, but the mental healing. The kids knowing psychologically I can do this and not questioning. I remember talking to Lawrence Cager about it. You know, Lawrence Cager had a knee at Miami, and he told me, hey, man, I thought I was back, but I really wasn't. And it really wasn't for 2 years before Lawrence was back. So I would say let's be optimistic that Dominic can play this year, but let's not have an expectation that he'll play this year. It's like icing on the cake, whatever he gives you. Let's see what else we got here. Questions. Lottie Lauderdale with a great point. You got to be quick twitch as a receiver. No doubt about it. Pretty sure Herring is a DN and Carter is a D tackle. Missed the front end of that comment, Cody Dodd. Again, if you folks got questions, real informal tonight, real conversational. I want you to speak up what's on your mind, and we'll have a conversation. We're going to talk college football. We're going to talk Georgia football, something that we all like to talk about. Covering some of the stuff Kirby said, getting back to that. Kirby saying he thinks that the recruiting cycles are going to speed up even more. Players are going to commit earlier. One of the unintended consequences, and there are many, of this play stoppage is that coaches, now that they're not spending as much time with their own team in spring drills, they're having more time to talk to these other guys on the phone. So the players are kind of getting beat up on the phones. They're getting over it. And maybe that will speed the process up a little bit. That may be one of the unintended consequences. Another thing that Kirby said I thought was interesting was these Zoom conferences. Now I'm still not sold on Kirby being good with just, doing video conference to get information from other coaches. I think there's kind of like nothing like being there. I think there's these trips to other schools still have a value to them. So I don't think Georgia's going to completely get away from that. I do think that the digital boom we're all experiencing, having to work from home more. Now, in full disclosure, I always work from home, okay? I typically would go into our studio in Atlanta on Tuesdays for the On the Beat segment, but most of my work came from home with me living, in the Athens community and just driving over to football 3 or 4 days a week or basketball or what have it for press conferences, and then the rest of the Dog Nation team is in Metro Atlanta. I'm kind of the boots on the ground in the Athens area guy. And of course, Chip Towers does the same for AJC.com. So we hit it pretty hard with both barrels there. And hopefully you enjoy both of those products and benefit from both those products. But working from home it's actually been a little different for me in the sense that we've really amped up the things we're doing video-wise. We still have our daily teleconferences at Dog Nation. We talk every weekday at 9 a.m. Our boss, BJ Swinney, will all dial in and kind of go over the game plan and review what we did and have a plan for the week. Of course, you guys know BA does Dog Nation Daily every day at 10 a.m. Centel does Between the Hedges or Before the Hedges on Wednesday nights. You're seeing now Connor's doing a Thursday night video. Michael Carvel stepping up with some trivia. So we're doing a lot more video-wise, and we're evolving even more on the digital front. So that's kind of an exciting time for us from a journalistic standpoint. We're all adjusting. It's all new. Like this program tonight, you guys are going, Griff, where's the sport coat, right? Why are we talking about blowing the nose in the... Because we want to reach out to the audience, because we want to get to know our audience better. This is an opportunity to do that. Normally I'd be sitting here throwing it out. So-and-so, Kirby did this, and so-and-so at the running backs lineup, and here's who lined up first for repetitions, and then they were working on fumbling, and Kirby said it to scrimmage on Saturday, and I'd be just, wham, just throwing it out there. Bullet, 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 bullet. But right now, we're all kind of hitting the reset button, and we're all kind of thinking about other issues with sports, with football, with Georgia, how this is affecting us personally. This is a time for that sort of community to pop up, right? We call it the Dog Nation community for a reason, because we really do interact with our fans. We have the Dog Nation invasions. Some of you may have been to those. And I'd like to think we do as much of that as anyone else. So I'll go back to your comments. I'll try and mix in my Kirby info with this. I see Philip Jordan Wells is joining us. I mean, we know Philip Jordan Wells. That's a great example. Philip Jordan Wells came over yesterday when we were doing our first Zoom presentation. We trotted it out on YouTube. And Philip Jordan Wells is well-known commenter in our threads. And he came over to YouTube, and BA identified it. We stopped the show and said, hey, look at this. Look who's over here. Jacob O'Neill is a guy that I've seen pop up on the threads when I do my shows. And when I see him on there and he'll say, hey, good job, Mike, or thanks, Mike, you know what? That stuff makes a difference. So, this is different, okay? This is like interactive, like real life stuff here, right? Not scripted. Will from Go Dogs likes the increase in videos. We like doing them. Thank you. Look at that. We got Jacob already weighing in here with some comments. What are football fans doing now to pass the time? I kind of wonder about that. I've actually had more work, believe it or not, because of the style of writing that I'm doing now. I'm digging a little bit deeper, working on a couple projects. Talked with a track coach the other day for like an hour. Fascinating guy. Learned a ton. Georgia could have won a national championship in track. We all talked about baseball, missing out on baseball this spring. You know, they were ranked, what, number 3 in the USA Today when the season ended, like 14-4. Track could have won a national championship. Georgia's non-revenue sports, they're coming around. There's a Kirby effect. There's some Kirby carryover there. Yeah. I see you say you're watching the football, basketball games, Jacob. You know, I hate to admit it, but if I already know who won the game, I just can't watch it. Now, if I'm watching like a Georgia game on a Sunday after the game I covered Saturday, which I often do, you know, because you can like fast forward, you know, through commercials and between the plays. I like to do that because when I'm watching the game, I'm watching the ball, I'm actually usually working on 2 or 3 stories. I'm working on my game ball story. I'm working on usually 3 things that I notice. I'm writing down notes for my report card, trying to get stories prepared so that when the clock hits zeros, I've got 2 or 3 stories that I just file so you all can read like right after the game. So that's kind of a work in progress, and I don't just get the luxury to sit back on, how about that? You know, I don't get to hit the rewind button. You know, they'll show a replay quick in the press box. You might look up, we got TVs up there. You might catch it once. Sometimes I'll put the earpieces on. I want to hear what Eric Zier's got to say. I think he's fabulous. I'm a big Eric Zier fan as a person, and even admired him as a player. I'll never forget watching Eric Zier against Auburn. That was my first beat, going all the way back to '93, right? And seeing Eric Zier on the field and just his ability to find throwing lanes. I think he had an extremely strong arm. I think Eric Zier was a victim of circumstance going to the Browns. I think if he would have gone to a better NFL team, I think he would have made it even better than he did. But I love his analysis. So sometimes I'll listen to Eric Zier while I'm covering these games just to kind of get his input, as well as trying to get sideline reports on injuries and things like that. What else we got here, folks? Let's see here. I'll see if I can get on YouTube. I think we stream live on YouTube when we do this. Maybe not. Oh, no, we don't. Not when we don't do it from studio. So let me check out my Facebook friends here. Rashad Davis, can you win it all? You know what? You can. And this could be that season. And that's part of me is like, man, if they don't play, this would be awful. Because you could say you give everybody an extra year eligibility, but a lot of these cats, they wouldn't stick around. They got to go to the league, right? Richard LeCounte's going to be in the NFL next year. You know, even some of the juniors, if they're draft eligible, it's not like they would lose a draft eligible. So that extra year of eligibility, that wouldn't help Georgia football. Georgia can win it all, and I'm not afraid to say that or write that. And I know it makes me a target when I write that, especially on Twitter. I know you folks tell me all the time, hey, Mike, don't let these Twitter trolls get to you. But hey, they do sometimes. And, you know, I don't like it when they go, oh, you're just a homer because you think Georgia's, you know, you think Kirby Smart's great. I think Kirby Smart's great because Kirby Smart is great. He's a heck of a coach. Look at the recruiting classes. Look at the guys they're putting in the league. Look at the number of the guys that are going to the combine every year from Georgia now. Look at how close Georgia's been to winning championships, if not for an injury or if not for a crazy play. I mean, he's got him on the doorstep, and he's only 4 years in. You know, he's only 44 years old. And I think I've told you all this before, but when Nick Saban was 44, pretty sure I went and covered his game in Shreveport against LSU and Jerry DiNardo in the Independence Bowl when Nick was 44. Nick Saban didn't win a bowl game, I don't believe, until he was 49 or 50 years old. He didn't even win a bowl game at Michigan State in 5 years. He didn't win a bowl game in his first 5 years. You know, and here's Kirby going into year 5, national championship game appearance, Rose Bowl win, Sugar Bowl win, SEC title, 3 straight SEC championship games. You know, I'm impressed. I'm impressed. Mike, just say it. It's a safe place. Facebook is the best, and YouTube needs therapy. I've never really interacted with the YouTube folks. I go in there and I look at the comments afterward. I would say they're pretty aggressive. I would say so. Is it a different crowd? I don't know. I've never really broke it down. I haven't done enough research on that. I would say that I'm very familiar and comfortable with the Facebook Live model. I've done them for a long time. The Georgia audience is just, it's been great to me. You know, the first year there was a lot of, what are you doing here? You know, why are you here? You know, you covered Tennessee, or you covered Michigan State, or you covered Alabama. Or I was telling a story earlier and said, so you're an Alabama guy. You know, it's been kind of interesting when you change beats. And I think, well, how come they don't do that to coaches? I mean, coaches change jobs. Does anybody go, oh, well, you know, Matt Luke, he's a rebel. Well, actually, he is a rebel. He actually went to Ole Miss. But right now he's a Georgia coach. He's all in. You know, Dan Lanning, I forget what small school in Missouri he went to. But it's the same as a beat guy. I mean, it's a job. It's a profession. You get into the culture. You absorb it. You learn the traditions. You kind of learn the lay of the land. Each school is a little different. The DNA. I mean, it's still SEC football at the end of the day, but, you know, the fight's on. Hey, all right, so I'm going to do this. I was doing this the other day for fun. So I've been to Sanford Stadium now as a beat guy for 2 years. But for many years, I came covering the other team. And when I covered Tennessee, they would actually pipe in music of the other team they were playing when they would do the loud music. So this is my favorite Georgia Bulldogs cheer. And I don't know if this is, like, I don't know like what's most popular among the Georgia fans. But when I hear this to me says Georgia. And this is what Tennessee pipes into practices. So let's see. Right? Now that says Georgia. Can you hear that? Everybody hear that okay? So that's the Georgia. When I hear that Georgia song, that's the one that the environment just picks up for me in the stadium when they play that Go Georgia Bulldogs song and the bum 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 bum. That is what's cool about Georgia. Even when I was covering Tennessee or covering Auburn or even Alabama played there one year, that was it. That was the one that said, that's the one. That's the Georgia song that I want to hear. Love it. That says Georgia, right? Between the hedges say Georgia. I'll tell you what else says Georgia. And I don't know if you all know this, but the hospitality says Georgia. Now, Southern hospitality, there's a lot to that. We could go a lot of different directions when we talk about Southern hospitality. But Georgia's got a guy by the name of Claude Felton that runs their sports information department, who deals with all the media. He deals with local media, he deals with the national media, and he deals with other people in the SEC. And this guy puts a face on Georgia athletics that couldn't be any better. And I'm going to tell you, that is one of the secrets to why Georgia has such a tremendous reputation across the country, because they've dealt with Claude Felton. I mean, think about it. When you go into a business, however that person treats you is kind of what gives you your impression of them, okay? Like, for example, I went to the Zaxby's drive-thru the other day. They're so polite there. I mean, it's incredible. And I know Zaxby's was founded, Watkinsville in this area, but the service is so incredible and the experience is good. Same thing with Chick-fil-A, right? Welcome to Chick-fil-A. How may I help you, right? There's something, you go, you know what? I kind of like that. That's kind of cool, right? Okay, well, when you come to Georgia, Claude Felton is that guy. Hey, can I help you with anything? And my first experience with Claude, like up close and personal, was 2007. Was it 2007? Was it the year that Georgia played Hawaii in the Sugar Bowl? So I had vacation time at the end of the year that year. And was that one of the years that, I'm trying to think how it went. I had vacation time at the end of the year. I needed to use it. And I called Honolulu. I had done some freelancing for the Honolulu Advertiser, and when their softball team had played in the regional or something. And I said, hey, are you guys sending people to cover this this game against Georgia? Because I'm going to cover, I believe, was that the year it was played in Atlanta because of Katrina maybe? Is that why I was there? Or was it in New Orleans? I can't remember where that game was at, but I covered it. So Honolulu said, yeah, could you cover Georgia for us? I said, oh yeah, I'd cover Georgia for you. So I had to work with Claude to get these interviews set up. And I didn't really know him from Adam. I'm just like, oh, I'll just call this Claude. Hey, Claude, I'm Mike Griffith. I live in Tennessee. I cover Tennessee, but I want to cover Georgia for the Honolulu Advertiser for the Sugar Bowl game. Could you help me out? Absolutely. Absolutely. The interviews come my way. Pick up the phone, talk to the coach, talk to Coach Richt, talk to Matt Stafford. Claude's hooking me up. This is unbelievable. Claude Felton is pushing buttons, and I'm writing these stories for the Honolulu newspaper on Georgia football. And then I go cover the game, all right? I go cover the game. What a beatdown, right? And in Honolulu, for them, they made this Sugar Bowl was the world for Hawaii because they had never played in a game of this magnitude. I mean, this was everything. And they had hope with that quarterback. He was going to do all this and that. He had all these numbers. And I covered the game. And of course, Georgia rolled them. I mean, it just killed. It was brutal. Brutal. In fact, the Hawaii quarterback went through the handshake line wearing his helmet. And I actually wrote about that because he probably thought he was going to get hit again. Matt Stafford actually went over to the guy and put his arm around him and said, hey, man, are you okay? There's no way that guy would have finished the game in today's world with concussion protocol. Georgia messed him up bad. I mean, it wasn't like dirty. They just hit him. They just again and again and again. That Sugar Bowl. So here was my Hall of Fame. So I'm looking at the clock. The game ends. It's like 11:45. And even in Hawaii, they got deadlines, even though they're 6 hours behind. And I'm going, dang, they needed this story by 7:30. There's no way that I'm going to be able to go in the locker room and get these interviews. So what are we going to do? And Claude Felton tells everybody, guys, go ahead and interview the players on the field. Let me tell you, as a writer, that's a Hall of Fame move because he just saved me 35 minutes. I will never forget that, ever. And Claude is still the SID. He is still the nicest and most professional guy out there. And Georgia still has a sterling reputation in the national media. And that's a big reason why. Mark Richt was a really nice guy. That's another reason why. Dooley was a first-class guy. Another reason why. Greg McGarity, very media-friendly. Answers your questions, answers his phone. There's a reason why so many people like Georgia. Like, even if it's not their school, I don't know many people that really hate Georgia. I really don't. I don't, when you think about different fan bases, there's kind of a flavor or a taste or an image that you get from them. Georgia fans are really pretty cool, even when you're not covering them, even when you're the beat writer from the other school. They most often take the high road. Well, now that Georgia's winning, it's probably getting on Florida's nerves a little bit. But what can you really say bad about Georgia? The town of Athens is the best college town in the country. The campus is unbelievable. It's a beautiful campus. I told you about the PR from Claude, the way he deals with you if you're a member of them. Nobody in the media is going to get mad and have a bad experience with Sanford Stadium because of the Claude Felton factor. Kirby, when he gives his press conferences, he's so transparent. Sometimes he says things he wouldn't. Remember, what was it after the Auburn game when he said, I told the guys, how about them bleeping? I mean, if you're a media guy, you're like, yes, that's a quote, right? Kirby gives you quotes. And it's a good product. It's a great product. So, when you ask me, Mike, you've only been covering Georgia 2 years, do you like it? I love it. I love it. Now, there's not a Georgia flag in front of my house, all right? I don't root for Georgia. I don't root against Georgia. But you meet people, and you meet players, and you meet coaches that you respect, and you want to see them do well. But you know what? There's coaches and players on other teams that I want to see do well too. I'll give you a great example. The Wolf family, okay? Eli Wolf came and transferred from Tennessee. I was so happy that Eli Wolf transferred to Georgia because I covered his big brother Ethan at Tennessee. And let me tell you, talk about a first-class family. And I know this because I had to write some really negative things about Ethan Wolf that an NFL scout said. I mean, really negative things. And it really upset some people up there. They called me everything but the devil, right? And I said, look, I'm just reporting on what the scout said. The same scout said Joshua Dobbs was amazing. Now you're mad because I'm writing that Ethan Wolf needs to improve between his junior and senior year. And you write those stories and you wonder, how's the player going to react when I'm critical of him? Is he going to get upset? Is he going to take it personal? It would be hard not to take it personal. It'd be like if one of y'all said, hey, Mike, nothing personal, but you're writing, that story you wrote yesterday really stunk. And you say, now don't take it personal, Mike. Separate the person, Mike, from the writer, Mike, and take my criticism constructively. So that's what I'm asking these players to do. Hey, listen, don't take it personal that I said you weren't a great running back. I'm just evaluating your talents. You as a person are great. Of course they take it personal. Of course they do. But how do they act? How do they show it? Are they gonna shoot you the dirty look? Are they not gonna? Let me tell you, the Wolf family, the high road, the whole way, even after I wrote a scathing article about his big brother. And so when Eli came here, I had to be ready. I didn't know what Eli Wolf was going to do when he came here because he didn't do much at Tennessee. He'd been injured and he hadn't had a lot of opportunities. And they were taking a chance coming to Georgia, but they had Kirby's word that Eli was going to get a chance, even with Charlie coming back and being Jake's best friend. And lo and behold, it worked out great. And Eli Wolf made that catch against Florida that sealed the win. I was personally thrilled for that family because I know what they went through. I know what kind of people they are, and I'm happy for them as people. And to see Eli make that catch was one of my favorite moments of the season for Georgia football, knowing what that kid had gone through at Tennessee, but also with my history, having been critical of his older brother and his older brother handling it with such class. And you want to see good things. So I don't know, some insights on sports writer psychology. A lot of times people say, well, how can you, if you don't root for the team, how can you be a beat writer? And that's kind of the answer. You become a fan of people, but not the outcome of the team, because you got to be objective when you write it. If you're just a big homer, Georgia lost, it was the officials. It was all the officials. Come on, you got to have some credibility, right? You got to keep it pretty real. Otherwise, people don't want to read you. It'd be like watching The Weatherman, right? Every day, the first week you might like it. Every time I turn on this channel, The Weatherman tells me it's going to be 85 and sunny with a light breeze. Man, what a great forecast. I love this guy. But after a few days when it's rainy and cloudy, you go, this guy's always telling me it's going to be sunny when it's not. And after a while, you phase it out. So just like a weatherman, I've got to give you some accurate forecasts here. So when someone asks me if I think Georgia's going to have a chance to win it all, if I didn't think so, I would tell you that. But I really believe they are primed for this. Now, I'm a little worried about the quarterback position. Even with Jamie Newman coming in, I've heard some good things, but I've also heard good things about other quarterbacks to the point that I don't think it's settled yet. And I think like if there was spring football, it would have been good if it was settled. And when I say settled, I don't mean in the minds of the coaches. I mean in the minds of the players. The players have to be sold on this. I think one thing that went wrong for Georgia this year, and Georgia overcame it to their credit, I think some people lost confidence in Jake Fromm. I really do. I think that South Carolina game, I think the Kentucky game, I think Jake was starting to lose confidence in himself. And that's why you saw up to the Florida game after Jake had that great performance where he was like 12 of 18 on third down conversions that Kirby, grabbed him. Don't you ever doubt Jake Fromm, right? Because Jake had stopped showing up for media interviews. He wasn't the guy showing up anymore. And after a couple times Jake Fromm not showing up, I kind of thought to myself, what's going on here? Where's Jake Fromm? All of a sudden it was DeAndre Swift coming out. Why isn't Jake talking to the media? Because he's the quarterback. And that's kind of part of the job, is to talk to the media. And Jake wasn't showing up. And that told me, hey, they want to shield Jake a little bit from this. Maybe Jake's a little rattled. I'd never had gotten that sense before. In fact, I thought he was unflappable. I thought he was poised. I still think he's poised. Look at the way he finished the season. But when he quit showing up for media a couple weeks, that was really curious. Kind of wondered about that. All right, Frank DiCarlo. All right, Mike, that was a good outcome. Do you recall a player that didn't handle the criticism so well? Well, Frank, yes and no. Yes and no. So here we go. Tennessee story. You asked for it. I know it's Georgia website, and I covered Georgia now, but it's kind of a funny story. 2001, Tennessee had just lost Travis Henry. Jamal Lewis was gone also, and they had this little guy named Travis Stevens. And Travis Stevens, I didn't think was anywhere in the same caliber of Travis Henry and Jamal Lewis. Those guys were big, 225, 230, run you over, future NFL. And here's Travis Stevens, like 185. And I said I thought that, that there would be a drop-off at running back. And it got back to Travis Stevens. And so this was back in the day when you would talk to players, you'd wait outside the building and they'd walk out and you'd talk. There wasn't anybody around. And he comes over and says, what do you mean by that? I said, well, I think you're a good back. I just don't think you're a great back. I mean, Travis and Jamal Lewis were great backs. What do you mean I'm not a great back? You're a little smaller. And what do I got to do, man? He said, what do I got to do? I said, I'll tell you what. Talk to me after the Florida game. How about that? Okay, so I'm saying, all right, you beat Florida, right? This was like September. Well, then the Florida game gets delayed to December. Meanwhile, Travis Stevens is blowing up for 180, 200 yards, calling me out after the game. Hey, where's Mike Griffith at? Hey, come over here, ask me a question. I'm going, oh, geez, here we go again. Now, is that a good result or is that a bad result? I think Philip Fulmer thought it was a pretty good result. And, oh, by the way, he went for over 200 yards, and they did beat Florida. And me and Travis laugh about it now. But at the time, I was just like, this guy really wants to swing on me, But hey, I'm honest with these guys. I'll tell these guys. I'll tell them, hey, man, I didn't think you played really well. I don't know what happened here. You got to be real. And these athletes, they don't want the weatherman. They don't want the sunshine blower either. Not from the media, okay? They don't want that. These guys want reality. And Kirby wants reality. He wants these guys. You saw what he said about, the complacency and the cancer and believing their own headlines. Hey, listen, they ain't reading my headlines because when they didn't play well, I let them know. That receiving corps was awful. And I was one to say, and I don't have anything against Coach Hankton, but I didn't think the receivers were coached up very well last year. I thought there was a big drop-off. I thought it was pitiful that Jake couldn't communicate with the outside receivers. I was disappointed that Matt Landers didn't come around. I liked Tyler Sammons personally, but he had a couple of tough moments. I mean, that's a kid I root for because he's such a good, hard-working guy. But, man, he had some tough moments that killed him. And I wrote it. And I'm saying it right now. And, it's just how it is. You just got to keep it real. Did Travis Stevens handle it right? Well, I think he handled it right because he went out there and he showed me I was wrong. He went out there and set a single-season record for rushing yardage after I said he wasn't a great back. So he handled it right. But there was a confrontation. Nobody pushed or swung or anything like that. But it felt pretty tense. He challenged. Tell me, what do I got to do? What do I got to do to be a great back? How many yards do I need? And I just say, talk to me after Florida, right? Like, you beat Florida. He did. He beat Florida. The Georgia guys haven't really had a player. These guys handle things so well. Again, I bring up the Claude Felton factor. They coach these guys up. They train them to deal with the media. I think the Georgia guys do a really nice job with the media. They're very accountable. They answer questions. I can't really think of anybody. The guy that I have the most interesting exchanges with is Monty Rice, because Monty is a genuinely tough, very real guy. And I think Monty sometimes feels compromised because he understands, like, he's being sent out there. Kirby picks who comes out there, so that's number one. It's always interesting to say, well, who's Kirby going to send out, right? So, based on who Kirby sends out, you kind of try and read the tea leaves. He sends Monty out a lot. Sometimes Monty doesn't show up. That doesn't, we kind of Monty, where the heck is this guy? So, but because I think Monty wants to say, like, he knows he's supposed to try to say the right things, but he doesn't want to, like, not tell the truth. So if you say to Monty, hey, what do you think about how that South Carolina? You really want to know? Because there's he'll get this conflicted look on his face, and you can tell that he really wants to let you have it, or he really wants to let this thing out. But then the other part of him says, well, I shouldn't say that. So he looks conflicted. But so I talked to Monty. I talked to Monty down at the Sugar Bowl. And I was talking to him about this. I did this interview. It got to be just me and him because the access was so good, and there might be a video up somewhere. And I said, you don't seem to like talking to media sometimes. Like, sometimes he didn't. I said, and I get you want to say the right, but it's like you're afraid to be critical. I said, Monty, did you ever think that part of the reason that Kirby sends you out there is because he wants you to say some of those tough love things? Like DeAndre Swift did? Remember when Swift had all those comments last year about the offense and how things needed to be, and all, and you're going, whoa, DeAndre Swift is unloading. Somebody needed to say it, and Swift said it. And I think Swift helped his draft stock because not only was Swift a great running back, but he proved to be a great leader. He would be. Now, I think we're going to see that from Monty Rice. I saw that at the Sugar Bowl. Monty spoke up and talked on behalf of the young players and told us all we were going to see these young players that are ready for their opportunities. He told us all we were going to see it was going to be different, and his teammates backed him up. And Dan Lanning told us about a year and a half ago that when Monty Rice speaks, people listen. And Kirby has also said that when Monty speaks, people feel it. So I think Monty's kind of the soul of that front seven. He's a tough guy. He's worked hard. He's an interesting interview because you never know what version of Monty you're going to get. You're going to get the Monty that's trying to be a nice guy, or is he just going to go ahead and unload? And I'm eager to interview Monty again because I think he's a fantastic football player, and I think he's a really interesting interview. So a little side story there on Monty Rice. Philip Jordan, pity the fool in the A-gap. He's a killer. Yes, he is a stone cold killer. And that is part of the fun of Monty Rice as well. What are the questions y'all got for me? You know, heck, it's Friday night, 10:14. Already ate my dinner. Came out back here on the back porch, put up this light, got the animals back there in the yard, probably wondering what the heck is going on with this human being on the back patio who's usually never has the light on after 9 o'clock, and yet here I am. What else we got here? Tell me what you got, folks. Wrapping up here on my Friday Night Mike episode. I'm going to try and keep with Friday nights. You know, I do the Tuesday noonish, afternoonish on the beat, brought to you by Ingles. This Friday night presentation, something a little different. And I think Sunday, I think I'll try and go Sunday again. So 2 nights and then the day. Again, we're going to try and do 2 videos a day. We're going to try and do more of the Zoom presentation. That's going to be kind of fun. I don't know if you caught our draft. If you didn't catch our draft, how's Ozark treating me? It was doing fine until somebody dropped a spoiler. That's why I don't even want to bring it up, because I don't want to see any more spoilers. And as soon as I say that, there's going to be somebody's going to give a spoiler. So now I'm going to stop looking at comments because people, you know, don't do it. I'm just getting ready to start season 3. I like it. It's been a good distraction. You know, makes me feel like, you know, life's not so bad. It's kind of like when you remember the Jerry Springer phenomena. Why was Jerry Springer so popular? I have a theory behind this. Because you saw the people on Jerry Springer, and suddenly your life didn't seem so bad. Didn't matter how bad of a day you had. You turn on Jerry Springer and you go, now those people really got it bad, right? So anyway, what do we got? Are we out? Are we done? Is this it? Are there no more questions? No more bedtime stories from Mike? Yeah, no more bedtime stories from Mike. So someone requested the, and am I right about this? Tell me, am I right? Is this, if there was one song you hear at a game, is this the song? Is that the one? If you only got one, is this what you want the band to play? Or do you want to hear the Glory, Gory, Battle Hymn of the Republic, Georgia song, right? Like, because I know, like, everybody plays that. Like, I don't even understand. Like, everybody's got the same song. See, now, to me, though, that's the unique one. I like when they sing Sweet Caroline, too. That's, like, my favorite sing-along. But that Go Georgia Bulldogs one, that's the one. That's the one that says, you know, I cover Georgia. I cover Georgia. You hear that song, and I cover Georgia Bulldogs, Sanford Stadium, which I love. You guys know I'm the guy that thinks every game should be there. You should never take a game away from Sanford unless you absolutely, positively have to. Even more so now, because these local merchants, the guys that make Athens so unique, they need that money from home games. Don't fund Jacksonville, okay? They got their own state. They got a beach there. They got the ocean year-round. Athens has 4 or 5 home games a year where they got to make their money. And so that's my little PSA. for all games being in Athens. Maybe even the Athens airport opens up again if you get that extra game, right? How cool would that be if they were able to have the bad Leroy Brown? Okay, yeah, they play that Hugh. I like that. That's a Georgia thing too. That's one that resonates with me when I hear that. Much better than when they pipe in the music, by the way. Much better. So it's been a fun Friday night. It's been fun talking to you, catching up a little bit on what Dabo said today. If you didn't hear it earlier, the Tigers acronym, TIGERS, this is going to end real soon. I think we can all agree. We hope that Dabo Swinney is right about that. I'm a Dabo guy in the sense that I like him. I think what he's done there is remarkable. I'm anxious and eager to see this Georgia-Clemson game coming up in 2021. It's going to be phenomenal. It's going to be unbelievable. I think Georgia fans should probably hope Trevor Lawrence has gone to the NFL. I think he will be, but you never know with a guy like Trevor Lawrence, right? Is he going to come back for his senior year? I mean, how he wasn't invited to New York for the Heisman ceremony last year, I'll never know. He was on my ballot. He wasn't my number one, but he was one of my top three. It would be a really tough game for Georgia to win if Trevor Lawrence is still there, because this defense this year, these guys have marinated. This is the year for this Georgia defense. Let me tell you, they are going to be so good on defense. It's sick. They're so deep in the secondary. That front seven is so devastating. And just to tell you how good they are. So here's like a Kirby clue. Like, I always like going back over my Kirby Smart transcripts, like reading through it like it's a mystery novel. And Kirby, the question was, who are some guys that have stood out spring drills? He named 5 guys. Okay, he named James Cook, Zamir White, Clay Webb. He mentioned, who am I missing? George Pickens, and then the lineman. Why did I slip in my mind? The lineman that had the neck injury. He was impressed that he was coming. But and at the time I didn't stop and think about it. And then later I reflected on it. 2 running backs, 2 offensive linemen, and a wide receiver. He didn't mention any defensive guys. Now, Kirby's not being dishonest. Who are some of the guys that are jumping out? He mentioned the guys he chose to mention were all on offense. He didn't mention anybody on defense, right? What does that tell you? Kirby is raising the bar on these guys. Okay, he's not gonna mention your name. He's not gonna mention that Richard LeCounte is having a great offseason. He's not going to mention that Tyson Campbell looks good. He's not going to mention Monty Rice looks good, or how good Nakobe Dean looks now that he's got a full season under his belt and his ankle, or Travon Walker, who is an absolute freak, or Jordan Davis, who I'm hearing is having a very good offseason. He's not going to tell you that because he doesn't want these guys to hear it. He wants these guys hungry because he wants them to want to eat, right? I mean, that's kind of it. You saw the I Want to Eat video. I know you saw that video. And I still to this day believe that was leaked on purpose. The I Want to Eat video, and that's another thing about Kirby. Really, all great coaches, not all great coaches, but most great coaches, they've got that switch. Like when Kirby stands in front of the room and talks to the media or presents in front of, whatever club. I mean, here's a 4-time academic all-SEC guy with a business degree. And he's wearing his dress shoes without socks, and he's sophisticated in his 3-syllable words, and Kirby just sounds he could be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. He's so sophisticated and smart. But when he puts the sweatshirt on and he pulls that visor down at his press conferences, like, you ever see these press conferences with Kirby where he's got his visor like that? This is the other side of Kirby Smart, folks. That ain't the guy wearing the dress shoes without socks, okay? This is the guy on the field that's dropping some words and letting these guys know, I want your attention, I want your best, and screaming it out so that half of Athens can hear it. Kirby can go nuts on you, okay? And when I say nuts on you, in a good way. You got to challenge these guys. Anybody remember when you were 18 to 21? What did it take to get your attention? Right? I was in the military. Those drill sergeants, they got my attention. But you know what? The stuff they taught me saved my life. The black hats down there in Columbus, At jump school, they got my attention, but I needed to be paying attention so that when it was time to exit the aircraft, I knew what the heck to do. Well, Kirby's got to get these guys' attention on a football field. So on a Saturday afternoon at 4:35 p.m., when the Florida guy runs an in route, you know what your read is and where to be to break up that pass or to make the interception or to make the tackle short of the first down marker. Because you don't get to do over. You get to do it once. You get one career at Georgia, right? You get 4 seasons. And he doesn't want you to waste any of it. So he's going to demand that you be at your best. He's going to help you help yourself. And to do that requires some sometimes dramatic messages. Hence the I want to eat video. And I enjoyed it because I believe that the kids connected just like after the Auburn game when Kirby said, how about them blanking dogs? Now, Kirby is the most calculated, well thought out coach that I've covered. And I've covered some great ones. Mark D'Antonio, great football coach. Philip Fulmer, great football coach. Bruce Pearl, great basketball coach. I believe Tom Crane is a great basketball coach. And I know some of you are going to challenge me, but I saw what Crane did at Indiana. I think the guy's amazing. Give him some time. But I've covered some really, Terry Bowden was a great football coach. And I've been to enough of Alabama games and press conferences around Saban that I have a pretty good feel for him too. So I've been around a lot of great, but Kirby is calculated. So when he goes, it did. I don't believe it just slipped out, Kirby. I think you really were proud of your team and you wanted to make sure everybody saw that Georgia beat Auburn. And that message made sure that everybody saw that clip and said, what was he talking about? How about those what dogs? Oh yeah, they just beat Auburn. I don't know about you, but I wasn't real sure Georgia was going to win that football game because Auburn was playing pretty good football. And for Georgia to go in there and beat Auburn the way they did, for Georgia to salvage a top 5 finish last year, think about that. The year before in 2018 was a better team than 2019. And yet 2019 finished ranked number 4 and with a Sugar Bowl win, even though 2018 was better. That says a lot about the coaching job those guys did. It says a lot about the way they showed up and played and the attitude in the future, because that was the future on display in the Sugar Bowl. A lot of those guys having opportunities like Lewis Seen, like Samir White, like Kenny McIntosh, like Erickson, like who else played in that game? Jamari Salyer. I thought Jamari was awesome in that. You saw a lot of the future in that football game. And so when you ask me why I think they can win the national championship, I think they should be favored to win the SEC. I think I understand why Alabama's favored to win in Tuscaloosa because, Georgia, but I think Georgia's the better football team. I really do. But they got to solve the quarterback thing. That's the one concern. So I'll sign off with that. The competition is so good. It's a good problem to have that they have multiple good quarterbacks, that Dwan Mathis has looked good, that Carson Beck has looked good, Jamie Newman's looked good. But from what I'm hearing, buzz feedback, this competition is going to continue. This competition is very real in the backfield, very real at quarterback. Certainly, you got George Pickens and very real. Listen, Justin Robinson, this kid's come in, and he's going to push Matt Landers and Tommy Bush. Demetrius Robertson, he's going to have a fight on his hand for reps. There's a lot of competition on this football team. And I think that's why Georgia's going to be special when it resumes. And it's going to resume. It's going to resume. So have a great Friday night. I'm sure somebody will be coming to you on video tomorrow. Look for our stories. I'll try and get back to you Sunday night and tell more. I probably won't do the bedtime stories thing. Tonight was just a little different. I don't know why. It's okay. A little different. It's all right. Everybody, have a great one. Thanks for joining me. If you got more questions, drop them in there. I'll go back through the thread and I'll answer them. So take care.